No pressure, a year in the making, I'm worried. Well, thank you everyone, and I just want to say thank you to my distinguished guests. So I have two folks with me. I know you only see one up there, but I have two folks today to help talk about our transformation journey, and specifically relative to our move to Google Cloud. So first, I have Mark Chastain, and he is our head of, he says director of IT at Arvest, but executive director, but actually heads up all of our infrastructure. So don't let him fool you. And then next to him is Mike Calvi, and Mike Calvi is our head of data architecture and data governance. And so what two better people to help talk about what we're going to discuss today. I want to set a little bit of framing for you. So we started on a transformation journey about 2 years ago. And really, what we're trying to do is make sure that we've got the bank set up for the future forward. So when we think about how do we meet customers when, where, and how they want to be met, that means we have to rethink what we have for infrastructure, what we have for data, what applications we have, systems, how we engage with customers. I think we all learned a lot during COVID about how customers wanted to engage and that change that it made, both in the near term and over the long term. So GCP, or the move to Google Cloud, and Google Cloud Platform was a key component of that. There's two things that you might ask is why Google Cloud? That's a first question, and I'll ask Mark on some of that as well, but just by way of background. So I spent a little bit of time at Google, and one of the things that, while I was there, that I loved about the company and what I loved about what we were doing with Google Cloud Platform was the security starts all the way at the hardware level. So they make their own custom security, or they make their own custom hardware with their own security stack on it, all the way up through when you think about Vertex and Vertex AI, which is the platform we use for creating, Vertex is a platform for doing artificial intelligence and creating our machine learning models and managing and getting that into production. We also didn't want to do this alone. And we decided that we wanted to look for a partner to do it, and finding someone that we knew we could trust to help us along that journey. And I'll let Mark tell you a little bit about that partner. But it took a partner for both of these areas. Why? Because we wanted to learn alongside of them. This wasn't about us taking a cloud transformation journey and giving it to someone else to do, and then we take it over from there. We wanted to do it side by side, hand in hand, and learn along the way. And so it was picking the partners that would help you do that is really important, because everybody needs to learn, and we continue to learn to this day. So to that end, I want to start with Mark. And I just want to say, so Mark, how long have you been at Arvest?
Been at Arvest 5 years, started in October of 2018.
All right. Have you ever moved to the cloud before?
Oh, sure, multiple times.
Multiple times in the last year, or multiple times?
Multiple times in the last year. No, this is the first big cloud migration I've ever done.
And?
And hopefully it's going to be the last one. But
No.
very excited. It's an amazing journey and a great learning opportunity.
So we had, it's been about 18 months, right, since we really started kind of wholeheartedly on the Google Cloud journey. Are there like three major lessons? Like, I'm going to start with the lessons learned, and then we can kind of back into the detail from there. But what are like the three major takeaways for you?
The first is to be flexible. Transformation is a journey. You're going to learn a lot along the way. So even the best laid plan is going to change. You're going to have to adapt to it, and that's okay. We're on our third iteration at this point right now, and we're 18 months in. The second is we're all uncomfortable with change, and the greater the change, the more uncomfortable we are with it. So you really have to help your associates get over being uncomfortable with that to really embrace transformation. The third is transformation is going to be disruptive. You are going to cause business service outages. You're going to cause outages with servers and with services. But you really got to have a great communication program and organizational change managed to help you through this.
Yeah, our OCM team, our organizational change management team, has been a great partner along our journey. We couldn't have done it without them. We still can't do it. We need them around for a lot longer. So on that front, just the multiple iterations thing I found interesting because as we were going through it and our partner that was helping us through it, we kind of kept shifting gears along the way. And it's because we were learning what we didn't know about our environment. And I kept thinking, oh my gosh, how many times have we changed? How many more times are we going to change this strategy and this program and this approach? And then we started talking to some other banks, and we started talking to other people that were doing cloud migrations. And we talked to one company, and they're like, oh, we're on our 5th. Don't worry about it. I was like, okay. So just know you're not alone if you start on this journey and you have to do it a couple of times. So Mark, one of the things you brought up, and I want to talk about a little bit more, was people being uncomfortable. I think one of the things that we faced when we first said, oh, we're going to do this partnership with Google and move to the cloud, everybody was like, uh-oh, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for my job? We decided that at the same time we launched Me at Arvest, or at the same time that we launched Google Cloud, we were going to launch something called Me at Arvest. And this is a program that allows people we set up some role profiles. Those role profiles had learning journeys, and the learning journeys allowed you to build your career towards whatever that future state is, whatever it is that you wanted to develop. But we started first and foremost with the journeys around the cloud. So Mark, I know we did Me at Arvest. One, I want to hear your thoughts on how Me at Arvest helped, but also what other things? How did you get everybody along for the ride besides just, hey, you can come and learn about cloud?
Yeah, we really had a two-pronged approach. Our first approach was Me at Arvest, and it was a huge success. We really had a lot of buy-in from our associates. That was huge for them to see the investment that leadership was putting in them to help upskill them for the future. The second was an incentive program for migration and modernization. We wanted to help incentivize our app teams to start moving their applications, whether it be a lift and shift or modernization as they did it. We really had great buy-in there. You know, we rolled it out 14 months ago, and we've paid out over $120,000 in incentives over those 14 months.
Yeah, so that was a tiered program, right? I think it was, we do like tier 1 application, you get X amount of money, tier 2 application, you get X amount of money, but you had to like name your team, you had to name what the migration was you're gonna do, name your team, and then that team could get funded based upon when they delivered that migration. So
Yes,
we continue that program. We're not quite done yet.
No, we've still got a little more life in it.
A little more life. What were the most important roles that we had? So we did the Me at Arvest program, and we created these roles and these learning journeys. By the way, we also had to give everybody a certain amount of time. So we gave them 8 hours a month that they could actually dedicate to like work hours. But what were the roles that you started with?
The first roles were the ones that were really the early adopters to help us build the foundation. And that was infrastructure, security, and data. All three of those were key because that was where we started building the foundation.
All right. So on that front, Mike, I heard data and I heard security. So, you know, we think about cloud and we think about infrastructure, but we also have built a data platform. What was the benefit of moving our data to the cloud?
Thanks. One of the benefits we saw was a near infinite compute, right? So as we were in our legacy systems on-prem, building out these data warehouses, we would run into compute limitations. And we kept having to go back and add more hardware, which was expensive. And so by moving into the cloud, we're able to use that near infinite scalability for the compute and the storage. And we're actually able to reduce a lot of the processing time from our data warehouse or from one of their legacy data warehouses to service those needs for the business.
So you've also been working on something else, which I'm going to sneak in a question that I didn't prepare you for, if that's all right.
That's fine.
Okay, good. So one of the other things that they've been working on is single view of a customer. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely. One of those things, you know, the data domains that we're working through is the single view of the customer. And we're taking a multi-core approach where we have multiple core banking systems for each business unit and each kind of concept within banking, and rolling that view of the customer from that core system up into a master data domain. With that, we've attempted it in the past, and we were unsuccessful for a variety of reasons, one of them being just the pure amount of time it takes to process all this and to do that matching. With cloud, we're able to do that much faster. We're migrating these customers over and are about to have we just started earlier this year, and we're about to have 2 of our core systems done and provide it out as a response to others to use so that they can benefit from that holistic view of the customer off of 2 cores, and we're going to keep adding in core systems as we go.
So as we think about our data platform, right, it's become our kind of central hub for all of our customer data, so we can get to that single view. It's kind of nirvana, and I feel like we're on our way to nirvana. We're on our way to nirvana, which is pretty awesome. It's not without a lot of work and a little bit of pain, but we love it. So kind of Mark, back to you, right? So as we think about our move to GCP, we kind of had to start with building out the foundation, which I know you really loved and appreciated, because what we did to Mark was while we were building out the foundation, we started standing up other new systems, which really excited him and his team as we created some conflicts. But tell us about the GCP migration work and the building out the foundations.
So piggybacking off what Laura and Mike said, talking about the data platform. So as we built out the foundation, we had 2 key landing spaces we had to build out immediately to get ourselves rolling. First was our data platform landing space, but then also our enterprise banking platform space. This was all new to Arvest. I mean, this was new territory. So we partnered with Slalom to help us build that foundation. They really took the time to teach us and educate us on everything Google's Cloud Foundation offered. We wanted to know everything from networking, security, IAM, disaster recovery, multiple zones, multiple regions, everything that was offered there in that foundation. As we did that, in that first year, we built out 7 landing zones, and we did that all via Terraform. We wanted to use Terraform for scalability and also elasticity, but we also had a huge focus on automation. We wanted to build automation and repeatable patterns for our app teams so we could bring them on board and use that repeatable pattern over and over to migrate our applications.
So one of the things that, just so you guys know, we tried to set some themes up as part of our overall transformation. So one of those themes was simplification. How do we just simplify everything that we're doing? Another one was standardization, right? We want some standardization in what we're doing and how we approach it. So if you think about Arvest, what are we best known for is our local relationships, our awareness, our visibility. We understand you and we're in the local markets. But that localization also created some lack of standardization because we wanted to be super local. But how do you get that relationship base and be local while you create some level of standardization, but also then scale? How do we actually be able to scale to meet the growing demands in the market, of the customers, of the markets that we're in and markets that we serve? And so part of the move to GCP was scale, but also business flexibility. We wanted to be able to move as the market moved, provide new services, new capabilities, new experiences to customers. Not that we'd have a jetpack, but maybe we'd have a virtual assistant that was actually, we showcased something last year at one of our events called Soul Machines, and it's this virtual human that actually can help you as a service agent. So it's those types of things are kind of really why we wanted to do all this foundational work. And that's hopefully our business agility. So one of the other things that we talked about was really about, we had a lot of things we needed to do along the way and kind of bring the team along, and there were things we need to do just to get it off the ground. So you kind of gave some base foundation things, but there were a bunch of other stuff just to get this off the ground. You want to talk about those other areas?
Yeah, building that foundation, to get us off the ground, we had to also migrate, or we had to pivot from actually building the foundation into migration. Before we ever started building the foundation, our EA team, our enterprise architecture team, partnered with Slalom to do an assessment of our top applications. Our goal was to go in to understand, hey, what's their cloud compatibility? How do we move them? How do we migrate them? How do we modernize them? So as we did that, we went through there and we wanted to find a couple of applications that actually moved to our foundation to really test that foundation, to validate what we had built. And as we did that, we started out looking at the applications, and then also we wanted to take this application, lift and shift it, and teach our teams how to migrate it at the same time. But as we dug into the applications themselves, we had really, over the years, built a tightly interwoven and coupled system that wasn't easy to pull apart. You know, over the years, to save on cost, we had put multiple applications on the same application server, multiple databases across different servers, and other intertwined things that we did made it really hard to pull that apart. So we really had to find an application that wasn't coupled to move up there to the cloud. So we finally found our first application. It was roughly about a month and a half after we had finished our initial foundation build. We got it built, we got it moved up there, and everything was successful. We had a really fast follow right after that, where we moved our largest database, which was our current data warehouse, up the cloud after that. In October of 2022, we moved our first financially significant application to the cloud. That was a huge win, huge success. It really validated everything that we had been doing. As we did that, we realized, hey, we didn't just want to move things to the cloud just to move them. We wanted to modernize them, we wanted to improve them, we wanted to be able to leverage cloud capabilities. So we quickly switched to our teams to say, hey, instead of just moving everything, find the complex apps and move those and modernize them in the process. So as we did that, we really got a lot of head of steam doing that. But one of the things we learned along the way as we did that first initial app assessment, we knew we needed to go back and do an assessment across our full application portfolio. So as we did that, we assessed over 600 applications in 3 to 4 months, right after we built the foundation. That helped us build our strategy and our roadmap for the next 3 years on our application migration. But what we really figured out, along the way as we did this, and we learned a lot, was that as we started moving applications in earnest, as we talked about earlier, it was our third iteration of our strategy of how we were going to migrate.
Yeah, but now you guys are migrating like crazy, right?
We do. We've picked up a lot
Every weekend.
A lot of velocity.
Every weekend it's like, and these 2 more applications have moved over. So it's kind of been fun to watch, and we track it, keep it, we celebrate it. One of the things that happened last year, and we got another one coming up in 2 weeks, we talked about how do you incentivize people, right, to get involved in cloud, to learn. We ran something last year called Google Day. We had a full day last November dedicated to Google. Came in, hosted a series of sessions all day long. We had about 500 people in the room and 500 people online across the bank. This was all internal. We even had bank presidents and relationship bankers and commercial lenders, and they were all interested in what are we doing with Google. And so they all came in and kind of participated in our Google Day. We've got another one this year. It's in 2 weeks. It's called Art of the Possible. So we've expanded it beyond Google to include things like Thought Machine and some of other partnerships that we have. So it's going to be a fun day, but the next round of celebration of our migration. So Mike, right, I asked Mark kind of what are his top 3 lessons learned. What are your top 3 lessons learned from our move to the cloud for the data platform? That's been a heck of a journey.
Yeah, it has. And to be honest, past life, I was one of the detractors from the cloud. And in getting in and looking, to your point, on the building their own silicon to be trusted, we can't build our own silicon. I mean, I'd love to build chips, but we can't.
My husband does that, by the way.
Yeah.
Sorry. Side note.
So, the trust layer that they've built there is really impressive in terms of, Google does it, Amazon's doing a similar thing, Microsoft's doing similar. The big 3 are really, really strong in the security of that, of their cloud. So getting in and really learning that was a lesson learned for me. Another one was, just the amount of common off-the-shelf software we had and their inability to migrate up, right? You'd expect a build, this is common software, that it would, we run on this version of SQL or this version of whatever database, but there's a lot of the deprecated stuff that we found from previous versions of database engines that they were still utilizing. And so when you moved them to the cloud and tried to do a platform as a service database, they just didn't work, right? They no longer allowed that deprecated function, or they're utilizing some function that isn't really ideal in a cloud database. And so learning that is which of the applications we have to run as an IaaS for our database, or which can we run as the platform as a service, the PaaS, was interesting and a lesson as well. The third one is, like I said, just loving that infinite compute. I don't know if you wanted to mention it, the database assessment you all did, but just finding 200 databases that we can consolidate down into our cloud database. I mean, that is 200 database servers that we no longer have to manage, that we can roll into our reporting systems and reporting portion of the data platform. And that's just a huge uplift of the lack of toil that we no longer have to do to manage that system back to wherever Chris went from DBIR. You no longer have to patch that. That's handled for you, right? So I'd say those are probably the three things I learned.
Mark, did you want to add anything to that?
Now, following up on Mike, that as he talked about the database assessment, we really were able to break down, all the databases that we've done and what we've grown over the years. We have well over 3,000 plus databases, but to be able to go through and say, hey, these are the things we can really optimize and see improvement in the cloud has been tremendous.
Yeah, so just one of the lessons learned too, and kind of something we've really tried to make sure we track. I said at the beginning, the reason we did Me at Arvest was we wanted to make sure it was our team learning and doing. And so a couple times I mentioned the company Slalom. So they've been a partner of ours since the very beginning of this journey. But what we've done with them, and for both the data platform and the cloud migration, is they came on early, did side by side, they ramped up, and then we've been able to actually show, okay, they've added people, and now we're slowly removing them from the environment. I think by the end of this year, I think we don't have them helping us with GCP anymore in the migration. The team's fully taken it over. Same thing with the data platform, right? They helped us ramp it up, build it, learn side by side, and now we can actually exit them. So I think we got up to data was 26 people or something like that helping us, and now we're back down to 3. So it's that, how do you do that side by side and that partnership, and it's been really important for us to learn. But they also gave us that different lens, right? That's why they were able to help us say, well, do your migration this way. Oh, okay, we learned a little bit more. It looks like a ball of spaghetti, do it this way. we don't know this about our applications, do it this way. So it's been really a great partnership as part of that. And that's been really helpful. So, Mark, pivots. So we pivoted from foundation to modernization. What was the impact to your teams and the overall strategy?
It was huge. This was a huge pivot. So we were actually going from working in theory to actually doing the work and having to show our work. So with our migration strategy, as we started out, we originally thought that we were just going to migrate as we moved. But we quickly pivoted on it to where we really split what we were going to do and ran in parallel. Part of it we were going to migrate, or we were going to modernize. The other part we're going to lift and shift and then migrate or modernize down the road. This was all part of the foundation we built that was going to support it. So we didn't really have to pivot or do a lot because the foundation was there. The first thing we did was really look at our applications that we were going to modernize. We wanted to take our most complex applications and put those in the cloud using cloud-native tools to really scale them and take advantage of what cloud can do for us. The second was we were going to take our less complex applications and just move them via lift and shift. Our full VMware environment, where we were running, as Mike said, COTS apps, our commercial off-the-shelves that were really simple, we could easily just lift and shift them up to the cloud. That also served multiple purpose for us and secondary goals that we had. We wanted to get those out, and we're going to use GCVE, which is VMware running in GCP, to springboard and modernize down the road after we get our complex apps done. But that also helps us with future things that we're doing to gain efficiencies and also sunset a data center.
Ooh, sunset a data center. When's that happening?
Here in the near future.
I need a date. A date. When's it happening?
We're close to having it done by the end of this year, so we still have a little compute there, but we've got probably 90 to 95% out of our
Just
data
giving him
center.
a hard time. It's so we are going to keep one data center. So we had two. We're keeping one. We moved one of them off to the cloud, but we will continue to keep one as part of our environment and end up with a multi-cloud world, which includes one of our own data centers. And on that front, just record time, right? 18 months, pretty good time there to make all that happen. So super impressive from you and the team. Mike, one of the things that's been interesting around the data platform, we've been doing that while the foundation has been built and while we've been migrating applications. Are there any additional lessons there from that, doing them side by side, or something you would do differently?
This wasn't one of the questions.
I know.
Something we do differently from data platform. Honestly, having the expertise brought in with Slalom, I think we did well. Having that training going hand in hand, I think we did well. The thing I think, honestly, if I had to do it again, we would have started 6 months, 12 months earlier. We're just feeling as we're transforming and Mark's team's modernizing these things, we're always just ahead. I'd love to be further ahead than just by the skin of our teeth, but it's just that perception of I don't have to be faster than the bear, I have to be faster than you. And so I'd like to be a little bit further ahead so we can actually have the discussion of what's actually needed versus what's needed right now.
Yeah, so we've been doing these in parallel, right? I think that's probably the lesson learned is being able to we did the assessments up front, so before we even started the move to GCP, we did an assessment. We did a whole data maturity assessment, and then we did a whole application assessment. We did them at the same time, and then we tried to launch them at the same time. And I think it would have been great to be able to get more of the foundation in place first and then start the data platform, because we had some fits and starts, and I felt bad for our folks that were actually trying to do the migration of our data warehouse because we struggled a little bit trying to get that while you're trying to set up all the foundation. So if you're thinking about like sequencing, you want to get a little bit further ahead in the foundation.
Yeah, there's several instances I can recall of they're waiting on us and we're waiting on them in order to do the thing, from just a conceptual level. We need the foundation to be built before we can provide the data engine, before we can give it to the app teams. So
It was
it's
usually
kind of
y'all waiting on us.
Yeah, well,
Oh, he admitted that quick. Did anybody
I wasn't
record
going to
that?
call it, but yeah.
Awesome. All right. So a couple of other questions. So Mark, I think I'm looking at some interesting stats. I don't know if you want to share some of the stats that you have about what we've been able to do over the last 18 months in terms of the migration.
So as far as over the last 18 months, we've done a lot of amazing work. We got the foundation stood up. We've continued to grow that foundation. But along the way, we've modernized 18 apps into GCE. We've created 7 new Kubernetes clusters in Google. We're now using 11 new cloud-native services, which is amazing, something we've never done before. We've moved over 1,000 databases, just kind of lifting and shifting. And then also, as we talked about GCVE, we've moved over 1,000 servers there in a short amount of time, just lifting and shifting that into the cloud.
You've been busy.
We've been very busy.
Did you take any vacations?
Not yet.
All right. I think you have one coming, I hope. All right. So on that front, what I want to do is just ask Mike, so what's next on the data side? Where do we go from here?
Well, talk would be complete here without a generative AI discussion. So we have a couple that we're baking. As you know, we're starting with a small use case, expanding to an internal use case, expanding to an external use case. And so we're running through all the different concerns that we have, standing up the responsible AI components, getting all those in place so we can start progressing forward with our experiment and really implementing those things from a just small internal learn it, test it out with a internal use case and kind of keep it within the walls while we understand it further and then publish it externally.
Okay, Mike's being very modest. I'm going to make him tell you what his use case is for the internal generative AI. We met with the CEO of Google Cloud at Google Next, and he was like, I have not heard of anybody doing that. You want to tell him about your data steward thing?
Well, no.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. So we came up with a concept called Data Steward Assist. And so what it is as you catalog and do all this work within data governance, it always becomes an additive role to people. So, hey, on top of your 40, congratulations, you now have another 20 hours a week you need to do in documentation. And I don't know if you're like me, but I hate documentation. And so we said, well, what if we can just use the name of the column, not the data in the column, but just the name of the column in a database and say, is this personally identifiable? Is this card data? Okay, now give me a description of this, all based on the column name and kind of the table around it. Sometimes if we have the information, we'll give it the vendor's schema documentation and just generally tell us about this thing. And so right now we're going through the exercise of building that out solely for personally identifiable information. And it's really interesting the trade-offs that we get. So we want to bias this towards false positives, meaning it's going to identify it as personally identifiable information when it's not, because the contrary puts us in trouble, right? So no, it's not personally identifiable, but it actually is. Well, that causes different treatments that we want to avoid. So it's interesting having these trade-off discussions that you get to have as you talk through this and understand the different limitations of these things. So we selected a less accurate model, but it had a higher precision, because what was happening is yeah, we could be 97% accurate in this AI model for 100 columns out of 1,000. The flip side is the other 900 are also PII. So you're achieving this really high accuracy rate because you're saying everything is PII. Well, we backed that off and we said, we're not going to achieve that. What were we getting, like 80, do you remember 92, 86, somewhere in there? So, percent accuracy rate down to a 70% accuracy rate, but the precision is really high. So you can look at that and say, where it said it's personally identifiable information, it is nearly 100% accurate. You can trust it. Where it's saying it's not, you still have to have that human review and verify everything's correct before you mark it as approved and published in the catalog. But this is just removing a lot of the toil from the human to go do those things.
We got more work to do. That's what's next.
That's what's next.
And Mike, you also have another session after this. What is that one?
Yes, so we have data security view from a financial institution next. We're going to talk about kind of the fundamentals of data security and how it applies to Gen AI as well.
Awesome. All right, so Mark, what's next for us on the cloud? Where we go from here?
What's next? Of course, we're going to continue to migrate and modernize. Two big things we're working on right now. One is standing up our Cloud Center of Excellence. What we're going to do with it is really help us with our cloud governance, also help us build our reference architecture and our repeatable patterns that we want to build as we come through, as new patterns become available and new things that we discover. Also, in part of this journey, as we talked about earlier, was sunsetting one of our data centers to really help us gain efficiency as we move forward.
I'm looking forward to that day. I'm holding it to them. We have, so one of the things that we've done, just as a point of reference, is we've also set some metrics around cost savings from moving to the cloud. And that cost savings comes in the form of not just the pure infrastructure, but one of the things that we've also done as part of our partnership is taken advantage of Google Cloud Marketplace and put that as part of we go there first and say, is there something there that we can use that we look to as a tool versus going somewhere else? So we go there first, and that's also helped us reduce some of our costs and overhead. And so we've been actually using it. It's payback period, if you just look infrastructure to infrastructure, it's probably about 3 years,
Yep.
3.5, about 3.5 years for us to do payback on that infrastructure. just pure infrastructure level. So we try to separate the data platform from pure infrastructure as a mechanism for measure. So if you're thinking about, I have to be able to go measure the outcome and the value and the business value around this. Well, so I want to thank both of you for joining here and taking my unprepared questions, some prepared, some not. But what I also wanted to do is just see if I wanted to open up. We have a couple minutes left. If there are any questions from the audience, happy to answer any questions about our migration. Yes. How did y'all decide which cloud service you were going to go with? What came into that decision? And are you just on one cloud service only?
Right now, we're primarily Google. So we are using and leveraging some other things like Salesforce Cloud. Google really aligned with what we wanted to do as far as AI, security, and everything, the offering that they had.
So like we do have other, like you mentioned, there's other SaaS providers that we use, but in terms of primary infrastructure, it's GCP. Other questions? Yes.
Yeah, so when you moved over to Google, obviously you had hurdles and everything else. Was there something when you implemented it, you were like a positive impact you didn't anticipate?
Yes, that's a great question. Did everybody hear what Matt said? He asked, was there any positive impact, like any of the first things that we migrated? One of the first things, as we talked about, was we migrated our largest database, our data warehouse, while we're building out the data platform. When it was on-prem, it was running, when they ran models and queries, it was running almost 20 hours. Once we moved it into the cloud, we cut it down to almost 10 to 8, about 8 to 10 hours right in there. That's the improvement and the scalability that we saw on compute that really helped us do the things that we wanted to do.
And that was even before we optimized it, right? That was just by moving it over, so. Other questions?
We're a lot of what we do is COTS apps, so they're really vendor specific. On the things that we're building in-house under the CTO org, they're really going in and looking at that to how we write that program to say, make sure that it's cloud agnostic. That's one of the things that we've really valued is to say, hey, if we ever had to pick up and move, we've got to make sure our applications can move with us.
Now, there are some things, so when you think about AI and your AI models, right, and those take advantage of specific capabilities by each cloud. So because we're using Vertex as our, primary foundation for building machine learning models and the work that we're doing in AI, there would be some changes that need to be made, right? But you're going to get that with anybody, whether you start out with Amazon or whether you start out with Azure, whatever it is, you're going to end up having some customization that's unique to that particular provider. Other questions?
So 18 months for that kind of migration is impressive, very impressive, so well done. I love the idea of the incentive program for the application teams. That's huge. It's innovative. I love it. But my question would be on the application teams, there's a heavy effort for them to migrate, right? They have to spend time on not building new features. They have to spend time on not BAU. How do they balance those two things within Arvest?
I couldn't hardly hear. It had a little bit of an echo, so I'm sorry.
So he was asking, so when you think about BAU versus migration, how did you balance everybody's workload between BAU, keeping things up and running the bank, and the migration itself?
And developing new features to keep the business moving forward.
We did. Well, we really took our teams and we kind of built them into pods to go in there. So our infrastructure team used to be really one large group. So we really took part of that team. We said, hey, this is the group that has the cloud skills. Here's the ones that are going to go work on cloud. Same thing with IAM. So we really tried to kind of separate, development and everything that we had to do in the cloud, and then BAU to make sure that we had enough support to keep the bank running as we went along.
Can I add on that, Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Additionally, one of the things that the assessment pods did is they looked at the roadmaps, and in several instances they went, hey, this is going to be a big thing here for you at this time of year, so we're going to push you down. So there was a lot of flexibility in working with those teams on when can they migrate, when do we want them to migrate, and have they completed the things that they need, the pre-work, training, whatever, to do that migration as well.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that, what we tried to do was tie that Me at Arvest program, the learning, tied to the project that they were going to do or tied to the program. So people over time have done it. So, my team is both technology, IT, and bank operations. And we've got about 1,200 people, and we've had 752 enroll in learning journeys. We've had over 12,000 hours of learning over the last year, so it's averaging about 1,000 hours of learning over the course of any given month. And we've completed over 2,000 courses have been completed across the team. So just right, they're trying to do it just in time, because we actually have, so one of the things that's interesting is we had a gentleman and we had him come and speak on our, one of our associates come and speak. We do a transformation talk every month where we have folks come and talk about the work that they're doing on the transformation program alone. And we had a gentleman that was an analyst inside of our bank operations team, right? Didn't know how to code, had interest in coding, followed the learning journeys and actually got his Google Cloud certification, now wants to become a cloud architect. So it's been interesting to see how people are using it as a tool to navigate and create their own kind of career path. So it's been fun.
What happens to the job that infrastructure engineers had who were managing your on-premise databases and the servers and so on? What kind of a role that they are getting trained into it as those core system skills and support data centers retire?
So what was the question?
I think what the question was, tell me if I got it right. So the folks that are kind of, because we've separated out the duties from those that are doing cloud migration, from those that are kind of doing BAU, how are we making sure that the BAU people get the cloud skills? Is that right?
People who are actually managing your data centers, on-premise data centers in the past, infrastructure engineers, what kind of a job they are moving into now in the cloud?
Oh yeah, what are they going to in the cloud?
So with each job, we've kind of mapped that out to what their learning journey is to upskill them. So we're still going to have one data center. So those working in the data center are still going to work there. But as far as like our engineers, all the way from database to infrastructure to security, we had those job skills sit there where we're going to grow the learning journeys for them to go through and upskill them to where they're both, still capable of handling our on-prem, but also have the cloud skills that they need to go forward.
Excellent. Well, I think that's it. Any more questions? I think we're done. Right on time. Well, thank you all very much. Really appreciate your time.
Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you, Mike, Mark, and Laura. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to take a 15-minute break, but before you go, if you are